let's play an AI game and explain in as much detail as we can just how Legends of Runeterra works on a sort of technical, how the game functions level. Alright. So I have a Demacia Freljord deck. Decks can only be from 2 regions. Demacia and Freljord often combine to be pretty unit-focused, often buffing units. So every game, right, you will always see 4 possible cards in your opening hand. You can replace all 4, 2, 3, 1, or 0, whatever. Some advice, probably only keep things that cost 3 or less mana, because you want to guarantee you can do stuff in the early game. Don't get sucked into like, oh, I love this card. No. Replace, debate, probably only keep one of them. Alright, the other info you get is down here. You will act first or you will act second. The game is broken down into essentially what I call, well, it's broken down into rounds and what I call turns, or as the game says, actions. So I act first. Okay? So round 1 begins after we choose our cards. And there's my replacements. They're still a little bit expensive. And round 1 begins. As the game said, I act first. Ooh, I should turn off auto pass. Okay. So let's pretend my opponent didn't play yet. Let's unwind the clock. That's my bad. It's the first round, and it's my action. What do I want to do with my action? Well, it's round 1, which means we have 1 mana. Right down here. 1 mana, your mana. Each round, mana refills, and max mana increases by 1. Meaning round 1 has 1 max mana, round 2 has 2 max mana, and so on. Well, look at my hand of cards, and this costs 4, 3, 3, 3, 3. There's nothing I can do on round 1, so I pass. And that's the game auto-passed for me. Okay. Well, I passed my turn, or my action on round 1. It's now my opponent's turn, or action on round 1. Well, they had a 1 mana spell, or card. In this case, Precious Pet costs 1 mana. So, during their action on round 1, they played a card. Okay, now it goes back to my action, still on round 1. I still have nothing to play, so I pass again. My opponent also passes. Now it's round 2. You only go from round 1 to round 2 to round 3 to round 4 when you both say, I pass. The other thing that happens, in round 1, I acted first. In round 2, my opponent acts first. On round 3, it'll be mine. Round 4, theirs. Odd, even, odd, even. So whenever you see your starting hand and it says you will act first, you know, I act first on all the odd rounds. If it says you act second, you act first on all the even rounds. That will always be true. That never changes within a game. So round 2 just began, and my opponent, they act first on round 2. And they played Arena Battlecaster, because they have up to 2 mana. Now they could have played a 1 mana, they could have passed their turn and not played, they could have played a different 2 mana thing. They played this 2 mana thing. Well, because they played a minion or a unit, it's now my turn on round 2. Thankfully, I drew a card that was playable. I drew Vanguard Defender, and so it's my action on round 2, and I play Vanguard Defender. Because I played a card, it's my opponent's turn. On their turn, the thing they chose to do on their turn. Now, you can do almost anything you want on your turn. It can be play a unit, it can be play a spell, it can be attack, it can be pass. There's really only 4 options. My opponent chose, during their turn on round 2, to attack. You can only attack on rounds where you had the first action. Meaning, again, on odd rounds and even rounds, my opponent can only attack on even rounds, and I can only attack on odd rounds. It's round 2, it's an even round, my opponent attacks. And they attack by declaring who attacks. They declare that Arena Battlecaster and Precious Pet attack. They've declared an attack, now I need to declare blockers, and I can choose which one, or nothing, I want to block. I'm going to block here, and the reason why is a little bit of rulesy. See, Vanguard Defender has tough. Tough units take 1 less damage from all sources. Vanguard Defender has 2 health. My opponent's guy here has 2 attack, but I'm tough. I don't take 2 damage. I only take 1 damage. So this is a very good block. Vanguard Defender is going to live in this fight. So my opponent attacked. I choose blockers. I confirm my blockers. If I'm not even sure it's a good idea, I hover the Oracle and it goes, look, yes indeed. It survives. Great. I block. I take 3. I only take 1 there, and I killed a unit. A piece of advice for players, generally speaking, at least in the early game, it's okay to take damage to your Nexus to keep your units alive. That's generally the right choice. Play for value, right? Your health only matters if you actually die. But I got to kill an entire card and keep my card alive so I can hit back next round. Okay. So here's a slightly advanced concept. Combat is self-contained. My opponent initiated combat. No matter how combat resolves, no matter who does what, whether we play spells, declare blockers, do combat, whatever happens, when combat is over, it is the defender's turn. Never ever does the attacker get to go again after the attack. Combat is self-contained and is within itself essentially one action. So my opponent's action was attack. Sort of during the combat, it was my turn and I defended. Now it's my turn. That is always going to be true with combat. No matter how combat resolves, no matter what we do, that will always be true. Well, it's my turn, or my action, still during round 2. I have nothing I can play, so I pass. So I've passed. Does my opponent pass? My opponent passes. Round 2 is over. Here is round 3. Note that units do not heal. I am still injured. They do not heal, but now it's round 3. We have 3 max mana. I drew a new card, and I can choose to do whatever I want during round 3. It is round 3. I have 3 mana. I have a unit on the board. My unit can attack, and I can say, yep, that's my action. Or I can not do that, and instead, what I'd really rather do is play a card, and I'm going to play Braum. Some units are champions. Braum is a champion. So is Katarina. Champions are special in that they level up. Champions can only level up once. They go from level 1 to level 2, and that is it. But basically, it's usually a good idea to try to get your champion to level up, because they get really powerful. Level 2 champions are pretty much the best cards in the game. You probably always want to have champions in your deck, and you probably want to have as many champions as you can in your deck. Your 40-card deck can have as most 6 champion cards. We'll get into that later on. Okay. Well, again, at the beginning of round 3, I played Braum. It was then my opponent's turn. They played Katarina. Katarina's another champion. She is 3/2 quick attack. She levels up when she strikes, then she recalls. Deal with that later. It's my turn to attack. Well, or not, right? I can pass. And if I had cheap enough spells, or cards, or whatever, I could play those. I don't have them, so I can't. I could pass, but I want to attack. And so I take my units, and I say, hey, Braum is special. He is a challenger. He also has regeneration. Challengers let you choose who blocks you. They also regenerate all their health to full at the start of the round, which is what Braum wants to do because he levels up when he survives 10 total damage, which means I want to pull in things to hit Braum, just not enough to kill him. That's how Braum functions. That's like the strategy around playing Braum. And the reason I'm doing this is I really want to kill Katarina. See, Braum is being blocked by the Precious Pet, which means Katarina cannot also block Braum. Combat is always one-on-one. It's always one-on-one. So now that the spider's blocking Braum, Katarina can't block Braum. The only thing Katarina can block is my Vanguard Defender. And the Vanguard Defender has 2 attack, and Katarina has 2 health. I would love to kill Katarina and trade 1 for 1. So I have dragged my units up to attack during my action on the round. It's an odd round. I can attack. I drag the spider over, and I dare my opponent to block my Vanguard Defender. They don't want to block. They're also going to take the damage. right? They could have said, ooh, I'm afraid of 2 damage, please kill Katarina, she'll trade with the Vanguard Defender, but my opponent correctly decided that's not worth it. Okay, well, combat ended. On round 3, my opponent had the option to take an action. They chose to pass. I choose to pass. If we both pass, it ends the round. Into round 4. Braum regenerates, because he's Braum and he does that. We both draw a card. Round 4 begins, and my opponent plays a unit on the round. It's round 4. They played a 2-mana unit. They still have 2 mana left over. What do I want to do on this round? Actually, I think it's really worth playing Avalanche here. Deal 2 to everything. My Nexus, their Nexus, every unit on the board. But look at this. 2 health on Katarina, 1 health on Precious Pet, 1 health on Legion Grenadier. Yeah, it's going to kill my Vanguard Defender, but you know what? Avalanche seems worth it. Am I sure it's worth it? Yeah. Look at how this is going to play out. I'm going to kill 3 cards and lose 1. That seems like a pretty good trade. And we keep Katarina from getting to attack. Right? And this wouldn't have been possible. If my opponent chose to attack at the very beginning of the round, I wouldn't have had time to play Avalanche. But because my opponent played a minion, I get an action. I get an action. And my action is going to be to play Avalanche. So, let's go.
I'm not done.
And that seems like a pretty good action. So, my action was play Avalanche. It's my opponent's action because we keep taking turns during the round, and my opponent plays Fleet Feather Tracker, a 1-mana unit with Challenger, much like Braum has Challenger. I don't have anything I can play. The green button means I can't play anything. I pass. My opponent chooses to attack, and ooh, that was a really clever play. So, Braum regenerates constantly, but they have this Fleet Feather Tracker. They challenge it for 2 damage. They play Blade's Edge, deal 1 damage. 2 + 1 is 3, and Braum is gonna die. Now, I can't pull Braum out because he's been challenged, right? They get to choose. That's what this unit does. So, you know what? Braum's gonna die. That's too bad. Okay, we let combat happen. Braum dies. And because my opponent initiated combat, it's my turn during round 4. Still have nothing playable. We pass the turn. On we go. Round 5 begins. Once again, 5 max mana. What do I want to play? Well, there's a lot of options here, actually. I have a 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, and 1 mana minion. Now, normally, you really want to, in general, you want to spend all your mana. Not literally always, but in general, you want to spend all your mana. You want to be efficient. Sadly, 3 + 1 = 4. There's no way to spend 5, mana on units here. So, what's optimal? What's the ideal unit to play? And that's going to be up to you. This is going to be a hard choice. If I play the Laurent Protégé, he's also Challenger. I can kill off the Fleet Feather Tracker. I could play Avaros and Marksman, deal 1 to an enemy unit, kill the Tracker. What I actually want to do, see, I want to make my opponent show me something. I want more information. So I'm going to play the cheap unit first, because I'm always going to play this. So I'm going to play the 1 mana minion first. So I take my turn, and now it's my opponent's turn. What does my opponent do? They play Arena Battlecaster. Well, okay. If you're going to play that, maybe I do have a good way of knocking you down. Let's go ahead and play the Protégé after all. This seems like a good unit to play. Yeah, let's put it down. My opponent's turn. What do? Relentless Pursuit. Okay, so they played a spell that readies their attack. So we talked about how I can attack on odd turns, and my opponent can attack on even turns. There's a few cards in the game, they're almost all from Demacia, some from Noxus as well, that readies your attack. So even if it's not your turn, or like the correct round for you, you can do it anyway. So they took their action to play this card. Well, indeed they did. The card happens, but because their action was playing that card, it's once again my action. My action is to attack, and I say, yes, my units have Challenger. Fight me, I dare you. And I say, okay, here's combat. My opponent has no choice but to accept it. Combat happens. My opponent's action. They pass. I pass. We end the round. Alright. Round 6. My opponent's attack. They play Precious Pet. And now I care about the text on Precious Pet, because Precious Pet says, when I am summoned, stun the next enemy unit summoned this round, which means whoever I play is gonna get stunned. Do I care about that? And if you don't know what stun does, stun, if it was already in combat, gets removed from combat. Otherwise, it still cannot attack nor block for the rest of the round. So, which means, if I play, say, Alpha Wild Claw, it's going to come into play stunned, and when my opponent attacks with Precious Pet, I cannot use it to block. And you know what? I'm okay with that. My opponent chooses to attack, and I say, well, let's choose. We have a choice to make here. Do I want to use the Protege and trade, because 2 attack will kill 2 toughness, and 2 attack will kill 1 toughness, or am I okay taking the damage and just waiting this one out? This is going to be a choice you have to make. There's not a really obviously correct answer, but I think that because I have a Kindly Tavern Keeper in hand, so I can heal my Protege back up, or this Avarosan Marksman to deal 1 damage to the spider, I have good answers outside of combat. We'll let it go for now. So we skip the block. I take 2 damage. It's my action. Nothing playable, so I pass. My opponent's turn. They pass as well. On to round 7, and let's start getting a bit more interesting with this one. Okay, so once again, lots of 3-mana things to play, and once again, I really want to see what my opponent might have for me. And I'm really intrigued in playing Vanguard Sergeant. When I am summoned, create 4 Demacia in hand, which is a spell that buffs all of my allies with 3 more attack and 3 more health. So I play the Sergeant, the spell gets created, and my opponent passed. Weirdly enough, they passed. So I don't know what they have in hand, but it's clearly either unplayable or not the right time to play it. Okay, fair enough. I'm going to play greedy here. I'm going to play Avarosan Marksman and deal 1 damage to the spider. My opponent passed. It's once again my action. I'm going to go ahead and deal 1 damage and try to kill the spider. My opponent has a chance to react. Reaction doesn't happen. The skill goes off. My opponent's turn. They still do nothing. My opponent's hand must be very poor. Well, I grab my guys. I put them on the board. And you can see that, wow, this is going to do 15 damage to my opponent. This is going to be really, really powerful. Well, I lock in the attack. My opponent, nothing to do. Take the 15 damage. Their turn. They passed. Whatever they've got, it's not very good. They passed, and if I pass, the round ends, and round 7 is over. We begin round 8, and I'm going to hope my opponent has something worth playing. Wow. Okay. Nothing worth playing. Now again, because it's an even round, I don't get to attack during this one. I can attack during round 9, but not during round 8. And one more strategy point. If you're ahead this much, that the current, we'll call it board state, right? The state of the board. Don't count what's in your hand, just what's already been played. The current board state tells me I'm going to win the game outright, so I don't need to commit more resources. I'm fine to sit back and just bank mana and hold my cards as potential options in the future and let it go. So you pass, I pass, we end the round. Welcome to round 9, and it's time to end the game. Grab your units, grab the MIP, and say, attack. I attack. My opponent has no defense. Win the game. We have done it. Congratulations. We won a game of Legends of Runeterra.